Welcome to the Pitch Shot Chronicles. I am Chats. I am here with Rob, and we will be breaking down the latest highlights in the Yankees offseason, from Aaron Judge to other signings that may be going on around the league, and of course, the news yesterday about some changes going on in the YES Network. We'll be breaking that all down right here on Pitch Shot Chronicles. Well, welcome back, everybody. I am Tats. I'm here with Rob, and almost screwed the names up again, but that's all right.
I mean, technically, you can say you're Rob.
Yeah, really. As long as I don't call you Tats, we're in good shape.
Yeah.
But the news came out yesterday that the YES Network has reached out to Derek Jeter and Don Mattingly and getting involved in their YES broadcast booth. And I've been trying to figure out if this is to bring a fresh voice in, or are they, is this something that can be taken seriously, or is this just a headline for nothing?
I mean, they're Yankee legends. They're the last two Yankee captains. Everybody loves Mattingly. Everybody loves Jeter.
Yeah.
Every time you hear Jeter speak, you want to listen. So I would like to hear what he brings to a broadcast. It wouldn't be a full-time thing. Obviously, it'd be every so often he'd come in, maybe do a game. And the same thing with Mattingly. And I think it'd be a fresh voice. The one thing I don't want it to do, though, because, once Mattingly starts calling a game or doing color commentary, whatever it may be, it's going to make the fans scream that he should be in the dugout instead of booing, and it's just going to create this nonsense. But in terms of announcing, I wouldn't mind seeing it or hearing it because they're both excellent baseball minds. So it could definitely add a fresh voice, because I'm kind of getting sick of hearing the same K, Cone, O'Neill. As much as I love them, Cone is great, O'Neill is great. After a while, you want to hear a fresh voice, so it was nice to hear Maben a little bit last year and sometime Beltran, but it would be nice to hear different voices.
Yeah, I think that this is a pivot from the experiment with Maben and Beltran. And Beltran, I thought, not that he didn't know what he was talking about, but we had said during a couple of the shows last year when he was on, it's the communication to the general audience sometimes was a little troubling with the accent. A lot of people were having trouble understanding exactly what he was trying to say, and it wasn't obvious. It was just little subtle issues with the communication. And with Maben, I actually thought that he was the better of the two. After a while, I started to really enjoy Maben's takes, especially being so fresh out of the game. I thought he brought in he brought in the right dialogue for the new player and the newer fan that was more familiar with the players that were still on the roster, because he was playing with a lot of these guys. I think when you're bringing in somebody like a Mattingly and Jeter, they're really trying to reach out and get us back, our generation of fans, back locked into the broadcast. And I don't think it needs that much fixing to go to that stretch. But to your point, which is one of the things that I first thought of, is it going to be a distraction with Jeter and Mattingly? Everybody wanting Jeter in the front office. Everybody wanted Mattingly in the dugout. Is it just going to be a distraction for the broadcast with those two guys involved?
It would be a distraction on Twitter. I don't think the broadcast would be distracted at all by it. It happens all the time.
That on the social media front.
Yeah, because it happens now with Cone. When the Cone's announcing, he should be in the bullpen working with the pitch. Yeah, he should be the pitching coach. So it would only be magnified, because then everyone would say we want Jeter as the GM, Mattingly the manager, pitching coach is Cone, O'Neill's the hitting coach. That's what everybody wants. They want every Yankee great from past generations in the dynasty to be part of this coaching staff in this front office. And it's just not fair to them. And it's also not realistic, because think about this. Let's say Mattingly was the Yankee manager. He did replace Boone, and Jeter did take over in the front office. What happens if the Yankees don't win a World Series in the first 3 years? You're going to be patient because we're not patient right now, and we didn't give Boone an opportunity after his first 3 years. We wanted him out the door after two, even though he won 100 games in each season. I'm not trying to defend Aaron Boone and say he's this amazing manager. You guys don't know what you're talking about, but if they don't win, it's going to look bad for them. These are Yankee legends. So people forget that Mattingly didn't do anything in his managerial career with the Dodgers and with the Marlins. And Derek Jeter was only with the Marlins for a handful of years. So if you think he's going to magically come over here and the Yankees are just going to win a World Series, it's not realistic. You really have to understand what Mattingly is as the manager. I think he'd be fine, but the idea that he would immediately be better than Boone, I don't think that's true.
No, and one of my arguments against Mattingly being the manager, or managers are hired to be fired. That's just the realism of it. And we saw that he wasn't able to seal the deal with the Dodgers. He did okay with the Marlins considering their roster and their budget restraints, trying to get into trying to compete in the market. So I don't want to hold anything his record with the Marlins. I don't want to hold into this, bring it into this conversation. I want to focus on the Dodgers. The Mattingly, I don't think would be a manager that we would be able to have him come in, not get it done, even with the roster that we have. Even if he had the roster from the last couple of years, I don't think that if he can't seal the deal, that we just give him a pass. We're going to tear him apart, because now the extra pressure. Look, you've been here. You know what the expectations are. You need to deliver, or you're not going to be you're not going to make the cut. And I don't want to see when you get to that legendary status like Mattingly and Jeter, you don't want to get into a role where it's temporary. With the exception of Cashman, usually GMs and managers are hired to be fired. Their reign doesn't last too long. So, do we really want to put any shadows on their resume as a Yankee? I would say no. Just don't even leave them. Let them do their PR work for them. They want to get into the yes booth for a little while and test that out and see how that goes. That's fine. But as far as a manager or in the front office, I would just leave it alone.
Yeah, now that they're both technically free agents in the scene of baseball, right, you can bring them back for Old Timers Day. You can have them show up in training camp, in spring training, and whatever. Mattingly can come in as a guest instructor. You can have him do interviews, work with the players, and all that stuff. And maybe he can even help Boone in a sense when he's at spring training, whatever, collective minds. Derek Jeter can do the same. But if you put Mattingly in that dugout and they don't win a World Series in year one, okay, let's give it a little bit. In year two, okay, you got to think they did. Aaron Boone had one of the most legendary Yankee moments in our recent history. People don't care anymore, even because we didn't win the World Series that year. But if it wasn't for Aaron Boone, maybe we don't go to the World Series that year. And that's a thing that still lives in the back of Yankees fans' minds and even Red Sox fans' minds. They still can't stop saying Aaron effing Boone, right? Nobody cares anymore because Aaron Boone hasn't done anything with the Yankees as a manager. They don't care about that home run. Mattingly never won with the Yankees, but he was so beloved. So if he comes in, they don't win a World Series. No, and then what's going to do for that legacy? You can say, well, no, we'll never hate Mattingly. Well, yeah, you will.
Yeah.
I guarantee it, you will. And if Derek Jeter was at the helm while Mattingly was the manager and they don't win, you're going to start criticizing Jeter. And people will say, we'd never criticize Derek Jeter because you also said you never boo Aaron Judge, and you booed Aaron Judge as well. So everyone says we wouldn't do this, we wouldn't do this. Yes, you would.
Yeah,
you
I
absolutely would. Yeah. It's absolute bullshit. Once they start losing, because again, Aaron Boone, to Hal Steinbrenner's defense and Boone's defense, they win a lot of games with Boone as the manager. But that doesn't matter. I'm looking at Mattingly's career right now as a manager. He's got a below 500 record in 12 years managing. I mean, at some point, you would think if he was so good with the Marlins rosters that he did have for a little while, they would have won a little bit, right?
Yeah, and especially, see, what the Marlins are doing by getting rid of Mattingly is they're doing what the Yankees should have done um, when with Girardi and Boone. I think they held Girardi for one year too many, and then at the way 17 finished, they got rid of him 1 year too early. So Girardi fell into that weird bubble where it was too late and too short. Um, when you have somebody like Mattingly, you see that he was able to really get the best out of his players, and that's what you want. He was able to push a young core, a young group of players that really nobody was thinking that highly about. And we're the ones. Now we're sitting here in regards with Gleyber Torres saying, "Call the Marlins, see what we can get from them." I think the way that some of those players progressed is due to the manager, and I think Mattingly did a very good job in that. But I just don't see. I would rather see him in the booth than in the dugout.
Yeah, me too. I don't want to see him in the dugout. I just don't think that he would be anything more significant than Boone is. I really don't, because we know Jeter's not taking over for Cashman. So you can throw that out the window. Mattingly being the manager would be realistic if Boone wasn't signed to a 3-year deal. But let's just say Mattingly took over. Do you really think Cashman's going to say, you know what, I'm going to take my hands off the wheel for a second and let you do your thing? No, because this is Cashman's team still. It'd be the same stuff. They didn't win with Mattingly in LA. They didn't win with him in Miami. What makes you think that he's going to come here and we're going to magically just win a World Series? It doesn't work like that. The Mets fans thought that Buck was going to come in and give them a World Series, and they had a really good year. But what happened? They fell short in the first round. So you got to think there's a lot more to managing than people realize, and just the idea that Mattingly is so much better than Aaron Boone when the stats show that he's really not, or there's nothing to really back that up. He's probably a better baseball mind, and maybe he's definitely a better baseball player. Doesn't mean he's necessarily a better manager. So I'm not trying to knock Mattingly or anything. I just want people to realize if they don't win, you are going to start cursing his name. And this is a legend in the Yankees, complete Yankee history that we're talking about, that you don't want to say anything negative about. I think having him and Jeter in the booth in the same year that hopefully they give the next captain status to Aaron Judge, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's what that would do. With them in the booth, is the fresh voice. Give our generation of fans, that nostalgia. A lot of people in your age group, your guy was Jeter. Me growing up, my guy was Mattingly. So I would not want my icon to have any blemishes on his resume as with pinstripes. What he did with the Dodgers and the Marlins, let that be what it was. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't that lights out manager that everybody was screaming for. So, if he was so good with the Dodgers, he would have still been there. And if he really was that good and he decided that the Dodgers, we just needed a new voice. Not that you're a bad voice, we just want a new voice. He would have had other options other than the Marlins.
Yeah, and again, the Marlins had some pretty decent rosters in the early days when he was there. They had Stan, they had Yelich, they had D. Gordon, Jose Fernandez, of course. Unfortunately, his circumstances were different than players just leaving in free agency and getting traded, but they had a pretty decent roster, enough to win more than 79 games. I mean, he didn't win more than 80 games once with Miami. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just saying, take the rebuild years away and go back to when they had a pretty solid roster all around. I mean, the Marlins were able to put some wins together, but never able to go over 500. Why would you want that to replace the manager who has been able to bring your team to 2 100-win seasons and a 99-win season? I'm just saying it's a pretty foolish thing to say he should be he's better than Boone. Let him take over, because he's not. He's really not.
No, don't worry about Boone. Worry about the booth. That's how I would do it. Because one of the things that popped in my head is John Sterling's getting older. They might be getting ready to set themselves up to, with Sterling taking time off. He's not doing full seasons anymore, which is a shame because I love John Sterling. they may be trying to maybe shift Kay back into maybe the radio booth, which I don't think he would want to do. But just for argument's sake and just for conversation, if they slide him back into the radio booth, that leaves somebody like a Jeter and Mattingly to fill that seat. Maybe having O'Neill take a more prevalent role, um, and or David Cohn, like one of those guys. So now you can have a booth full of former Yankees that are on that plateau of just admiration. I think that would be very good for the Yes Network and their ratings, and it would also give us more of a player's perspective during the play call.
Yeah, Kay ain't going anywhere from Yes.
No, I don't. I'm just for conversation.
Yeah, but even with that conversation, like the idea of him not seeing his big old head before every Yankee game, it doesn't sit right with me. Even though I kind of want to mute his voice from time to time, just not seeing him. The games that he doesn't travel to when Ruocco takes over, I love watching those games. I love listening to Ruocco call the games. Ideally, he's the future voice, but maybe they give him the radio gig if Sterling retires.
That wouldn't be a bad idea either.
I don't know who took over when Sterling had his days off this year, but he was pretty good too.
They rotated a lot of different voices.
Yeah. Was it Shackle? I don't know the names. I'm sorry, but
yeah, I don't either.
There's guys they have in place. It's two different networks. WFAN different than Yes, but even though Sterling does work for Yes from time to time, but I don't want Mattingly doing play-by-plays. If anyone's taking over for Kay, it's got to be Ruocco. I just think they're both so good in there. They would add into what O'Neill's doing as kind of like the third guy in the booth. I think Jeter and Mattingly would be really good for that role. But having all three of them together might take over from the game itself, because then it's going to be their conversations like reminiscing about the old, like, oh, remember this? Remember when we did this? And then you kind of want to watch the game. So if you want to hear them talk to each other, maybe they should do a podcast or something. I just don't know. I just don't want that taking over a ball game.
Having those guys, if you really want to get into it, the broadcasting, maybe even having them do have them take over doing the pregame or the postgame shows, and breaking down, more postgame I would go with, and breaking down, inning by inning, all the different plays and how everything was articulated and executed. I think having that kind of, names behind that, I think that would be tremendous. Like when they brought in Buck, how exciting, the post games was something to watch again. I think having somebody like a Jeter or Mattingly or both join Bob Lorenz in the post game, I think that would be even a better idea than in the in-game booth.
Yeah, I mean, ideally they'd both be there, not every day, but I think it's on like a limited basis that they want him anyway. But we'll see what happens. For now, it's just preliminary that they reached out to him. There's nothing guaranteed. I just knew the second I saw that headline that it's going to be Boone should be Mattingly. Yep. Even Donald commented under the damn thing, and he said that Mattingly should be taken over for Boone. So there it is. One of us already wants it. So I'm just saying, if it does happen, be prepared for it, because your Twitter feed's going to be filled with people screaming for. It's going to take Mattingly one line about contact is important or whatever it may be, that the old school fans could be like, see, that's why he should be the manager. And yet when IKF hits the ball on the ground for a double play, you're going to scream that he should be traded or he should be off the team, blah, blah, blah. So potato, I don't know.
Yeah, it's, Mattingly would come in, stick with, he would have he would have a bigger leash to do his own thing with Cashman, but we all know how Cashman just loves to get involved where he doesn't belong. So now you're going to have that conflict in itself. So that was the other reason why I really, not that did I want Mattingly as a manager at one point? Absolutely. But then when you start peeling everything back and trying to break it down, no, he's not a fit for the dugout. But I really, he's such a respected name in the brand that if you're able to get him back in a capacity to reach out and interact with fans. I think that's a win for everybody. And Chris, what's going on? What's up? Um, Chris, what do you think about the whole thing with Boone and with Jeter and Mattingly going into the S booth, even temporarily? Because I'm curious, and if you're doing it on a show, let us know. We'll shout it out. But I just think that I think they would fit more in the post game. The more I'm thinking about it, I keep going back to that. I think that would be their niche.
They would fit anywhere that doesn't have to do with them taking over baseball operations or managing. Would I like to see Derek Jeter with the team having a more prominent role? Absolutely. Who wouldn't? Because it's Derek freaking Jeter. But I'm just saying, hypothetically, if he took over as the GM or president of operations and the Yankees don't win, which all Derek Jeter is known for is winning, it's going to sour people a little bit. They're going to say, well, what's really different? Because let's say we make it to the ALCS again and we lose. The Houston Astros just added Jose Abreu, which is like kryptonite for us when he plays us. He kills us, makes their lineup even better. If we lose to them again and Derek Jeter and Mattingly are at the helm, it is nothing different than what we have been doing since this window opened and when Boone took over. All we do is lose in the playoffs. So what's going to be different? And what people are going to say, well, we're okay with it because Jeter's leading the charge. Why would you be okay with it? I'm just trying to say, think about this before you scream that he needs to be here. Should he be here? Maybe. Would I like to see it? Cool. I would be happy to see it, but I'm not going to sit here and lie and be like, I'd be okay with losing just because Derek Jeter's taken over. No, I wouldn't be.
No, and I think, and even Cashman said it, in one of his interviews, with bringing Jeter back into the organization, and what Cashman thought about it. Did he feel like his job was at stake? And I think Cashman had the right answer. As much as I love to criticize him and throw shade at him, he was just the owner of a team. He's not just going to take a demotion back to a GM role. He's going to want to do something that's really more behind the scenes. If anything, if he even works for another organization again, he might just freelance all over the place and do it that way, which is fine. You might have a bigger role on the MLB network than the Yes Network. That might be something that he wants to do. So I that's where I don't think that Jeter would go too much into the GM role, or I don't think he's going to take over for Randy Levine. I think that's silly. Those Cashman and Levine is like peanut butter and jelly. Those two are just not going anywhere. They're just married together. They'll always those names will always be together.
Yeah.
Relevant franchise, welcome to the show. Just waking up. Good morning. So are we. And Chris, kind of can't wait to see how this will work. I can't wait. I'm curious, more than I'm more on the curious level than the anticipation level. I'm not sure how this is going to play out. Even if it does, this might be a dead issue tomorrow, and the two of them, they might turn around and be like, yeah, we respect, we're glad that the Yes Network reached out. We're just really not that interested. We just don't see that as a role for us. And then the headline's dead already.
Well, they may not be employed by Yes, but if they come in every so often, that's probably what they're talking about. Like, hey, maybe for opening day or something, we bring in Mattingly, or from time to time, Mattingly comes in and does a little, color commentary with the booth. Or let's say if O'Neill's not there, then Mattingly will come in, like the same way they did with Beltran and Maven, even though I think they were employed, but it'd be a little bit different to where Jeter would have the freedom to go on MLB Network or go on Fox like he was in the World Series. And Mattingly can do his thing because he's still a great baseball mind. People want to hear what Mattingly has to say. So I think they want that freedom. I think Jeter wants that freedom because I never would have thought I'd see the day where Derek Jeter's appearing on TV as much as he is. And the fact he's on Instagram, never would have thought thought I'd see that day. But now he's out there more. Now that he's no longer as the owner or whatever he was at the Marlins, president, whatever, CEO, now he's been on TV a ton. So he wants to show up more, and he's going to get paid a lot of money to do it. So why would he limit himself to just one opportunity when he can be like, Fox is going to pay me to go on, MLB Network's going to pay me to go on. The guy can make millions upon the millions he already has just appearing. So I don't think he's going to take it to be employed by yes, but to be involved with the Yankees again, I think he will do that. Maybe if it's Old Timers Day or the day that they give Aaron Judge captain, they will have Mattingly and Jeter there because that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna, if they have those guys in the booth, I think there are a few days that stand out. It would be opening day, Old Timers Day. They would be great in the booth, especially more Mattingly because he's that link between this generation and the generation before him of players that come. Games like that, postseason games. So I think that's where he would stand out. So yeah, no, Jeter is okay. Oh, Tony. Okay, Tony Clark under his new handle. So I don't like Beltran in the booth. He needs to be able to stand commentary and not speak broken English. Just saying. Yeah, that's what I said in the beginning. It wasn't that it was obvious; it was subtle, but there was still that was a big issue for a lot of people was communication. And Chris, yeah, and just think how Jeter feels free and relaxed. Yeah, he's much more relaxed. Much more relaxed. I think we're seeing a side of Jeter that we never thought we'd ever see because he was always so reserved and private. Now that he's out in the public, it's like, who the hell is this guy? And we're all for it.
Getting married and having kids will do that to you, apparently.
I haven't been able to shut up. But this is only because I don't get a word in Edgewise' home. So you guys got to hear the brunt of it. But no, I think that with the two of them, especially that they're getting ready, the Yankees, if you think about it, are getting ready for that next shift in the roster where they're gonna the baby bombers bombed. It didn't work. They crashed. We haven't won anything with them. This next group, I think they would have more guidance this time around, especially that you see in Jeter back in the public. Mattingly did, as even though he didn't win, like we said, he was still a good communicator with younger players. They loved him. So that, and that's why a lot of people wanted him in the dugout. It's just not going to work. So, Tony, yeah, I would be worried Jeter as a GM would sell most of the team off like he did with the Marlins. No, I don't think so. I think when he took over the Marlins, he just wanted to do a complete reset, and build it his way. And we saw a lot of upside to it. We saw some of the downsides to it. Because he really traded everybody off to where they were really a minor league team.
Well, the situation was a lot different. The Marlins were ran terribly. That owner,
there was so much debt.
That dude was spending money that he didn't have, and he wouldn't invest in the team. That's why Stanton wanted out. That's why they had to trade off so many players, because they had a really good group of players, and they just needed pitching because they had the hitters. I mean, you have Giancarlo Stanton, Marcelo Ozuna, Christian Yelich, D. Gordon, JT Realmuto in the same lineup, and they all leave within like a few years of each other. And the players said, we can win if you just get us some damn pitching. They didn't want to do it. So Jeter took over and realized something has to change because this team ain't winning. You have too much money invested in positions that you need to get pitching and you need to get younger. So he took over, and that team needed a rebuild. The Yankees are still second best team in the American League. They're not rebuilding. It's a completely different situation. How if the Yankees lost Aaron Judge and Anthony Rizzo walked, then maybe you can argue, but they still have Garrett Cole on the payroll. They still have Giancarlo Stanton on the payroll. You're not moving those contracts for nothing. It would be a difficult thing to try to rebuild the Yankees.
Yeah, it's just so depressing to say the Yankees are the second best team in the league. But it's the truth, but it's still very depressing to say. Well, we'll be back on Thursday. We will be breaking down what the roster needs to do to get back into relevancy to become the best team in the American League. And we will be back on Thursday on Northeast Streaming Sports, on YouTube, on Roku, on Twitch. We are everywhere and anywhere you could find us. Wear your pinstripes, your pride, and play hard.